All right, so let's talk about success at Olivet, as the name implies on this presentation. So specifically focusing on strategies and just things to know as you think ahead to keeping your GPA up, because we do ask for above a 2.0 GPA in college so that you can keep all of the scholarships that you have been granted so far from Olivet specifically, particularly that academic scholarship, which, as you remember, everyone that is admitted to Olivet gets that. So we just want to make sure that you're able to keep that all 4 years. And then speaking of 4 years, our plan is always for you to graduate in that period of 4 years. There are students every once in a while that have to stay an extra semester or an extra year, but really the default plan is for you to be done in 4 years so that you can start putting your career into practice and so that you can start making money instead of paying money, essentially. So we are just going to talk through some things that are important to know. So, first of all, the number one reason why college students don't complete that degree in that standard period of 4 years is because students might not be taking enough credit hours every academic year. Or if we divide it even more, every academic semester, which, as we know, is just half of that school year, right? So, the period from August to December, and then you get Christmas break, and then you go back January through end of April, beginning of May, kind of depending on your school. But typically, like by the second week of May, you're done for that academic year, right? So again, not taking enough of those credit hours per year to finish on that 4 year timeline. Really, the goal in mind, whether you come to Olivet or any other school, but obviously, you're already planning on being here with us. The goal is always to take what's called 30 credit hours every academic year. So if you divide that evenly, that's 15 credit hours each semester. Now, credit hours is just the term that we use when it comes to talking about classes at the college level. Usually you're taking a 3 credit hour class, right? So 3 credit hours mean you're spending about 3 hours in the classroom for a particular class. So like I mentioned, most college classes, most of the time, there's exceptions to it, but most of the time are worth about 3 credit hours. So if you divide that evenly, that's about 5 classes, right? Which is pretty manageable. That's 5 classes every semester. So then you're taking 10 classes every year. So then by the time the 4 years roll around, you have taken enough classes to get your degree. So that's why we like to divide it up evenly. Now, I do want to mention some students are actually required to take 15 as the minimum if you have what's called the MAP grant, which is a grant from the state of Illinois. So they do ask that you take 15 credit hours every semester if you want to keep that particular financial aid coming in from the state of Illinois. Now, you still can get help from the state of Illinois if you dip below 15 credit hours, but you won't get the full amount of that grant. So I just want to mention that because it is important to know. Now, next, when we look at different studies, we find that when students take at least 30 credits per year, right? So they're taking at least 30 credits specifically in that freshman year, they tend to earn better grades. They are more likely to come back from freshman year to sophomore year, from sophomore year to junior year to senior year, and they're more likely to graduate. Why? Because you are already building up that structure in your mind of what it takes to be successful in those 5 classes at a time. I do want to mention you can take more than 5 classes at a time. You can take up to 18 credit hours without affecting your financial aid every semester, but I don't typically recommend that first semester of freshman year, just so that you can get a chance to get used to what it's like to be in a college class, just because it is different from high school, right? And that's okay. That first semester is a lot of learning. So 15 is the recommended, especially for that first semester. And then, of course, we're talking about at least 15 credit hours every semester after that. So let's say, worst case scenario, you have to stay an extra year or an extra semester at college. I do want to point out that some students do choose to do this for a variety of reasons. Some have what's called co-op programs, depending on what their major is. So maybe they are working a semester and then they're in class a semester and they're flip-flopping back and forth, and that might be a 5-year program. That's okay. Every once in a while, you'll have students that actually want to go ahead and get their master's. So they'll actually stay for 5 years so that when they graduate, they have their undergraduate degree and they have a master's. That's also okay. And some students come to us and they know from the get-go, or they decide at some point when they're in college that they actually want to get a double major. Some, I've even heard of triple majors. It's not very common. Not something that everybody does, but it is a possibility if you want to. And sometimes that does take a little bit of extra time. That's okay. But again, ideally, we want you to be done in 4. Even if you have a double major, we'll try to work with you and see if you can get it done in 4 years. Now, if you're just staying because, again, you didn't take enough credits, that's not ideal. Simply because if that happens, then when we're looking at research, they suggest that just one extra year of college can cost you about $68,000. Now, how do they get this number? They're talking about if you add up tuition and fees and room and board, which is what you typically pay anyway, right, for an extra year. But then on top of that, you add the lost wages, right? Because you could be working that 5th year, but instead, since you're still in college for not taking enough classes, then you're missing out on that money too, which is how they get to that $68,000. So this is not to scare you. It is just to prepare you for the fact that we want you to get in the mindset of, I want to try to be done in 4 years or sooner. Some students actually are done early, but again, 4 years is the goal that we have for all of our students. So how can you make that happen? The first thing is structuring your schedule. That is so important. We want you to figure out what works for you. Good structure, a good routine, that is really going to help you. And we know that the first semester is going to be a learning semester. So that is a good time to learn what it is to have a good schedule, to learn what works for you, to learn what kind of study habits you have and how to build better study habits. So we're going to look at Alexa's class schedule. So Alexa, she takes classes. She works in the Office of Admissions as one of our student workers. So I just wanted to give you an example of what it looks like to have 15 credit hours. So you're seeing that she's taking these classes, right? She's got a theology class on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, social work class Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You do have chapel. Every student has chapel Wednesday and Thursday morning. You will never miss a class for that. That's built into your schedule already. This little block where it says GNST, if you're seeing that right there, that is a class specifically for freshmen. So you only take that one semester and you only take that once a week. So if I remember correctly, that's actually worth just 1 credit hour. It's one of those exceptions, right? Everything else for the most part is worth 3. Some classes like this biology class over here, she has Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You'll see she also has something called biology on Thursday. That's the lab that goes with that class. So that class is actually worth, I think, 4 credit hours because of the fact that you're spending time in the classroom and you're spending time in a lab for that class. And then she has a 3 p.m. social work class on Tuesday and Thursday. So that's about what it would look like if you took 15 credit hours. It might not look that exact same way depending on your major, what classes you're taking. You might not have anything past 12 p.m. or you might not have an 8 o'clock class, but you're starting later in the day and maybe you're finishing up maybe around 1 or 2. So it really depends on what classes you're taking, whether you're a morning person or not. There's a little bit of flexibility there. But again, you are aiming for 15 credit hours each semester at least. And this is an example of one. Now, do you notice that there are some empty spaces in between classes?
Yeah.
So there's a gap, right, on Monday at 10 a.m. There's a gap on Tuesday until 3. She has that whole big gap right there. Thursday, if she wakes up at 8 every day, or around 8 every day, she's got a gap until chapel, which is about 9:30. So those empty slots in between classes are really great times to just get things done, whether that's doing an assigned reading for a class or getting some homework done. But that's an ideal time to get things done. And if you do an hour of, some homework while you eat a late breakfast on Monday from 10 to 11, that's 1 less hour of work that you have to do later on in your day. So definitely my recommendation is
I have a question. Sorry for interrupting.
No, you're good. Go ahead. What's your question?
So it's about the 15 credit hours.
Yeah.
So you said how many classes?
So 15 is about 5 classes.
Okay. And you said we should aim for that every semester?
Yes, you're aiming for 15 at least every semester. Sometimes you might want to take an extra class, or you might be in a choir, so maybe you're taking 16 credit hours because your choir class counts for a credit. So that might be a little bit different, but 15 is ideally the minimum you're aiming for every year, every semester.
Okay.
Yes,
So if we,
great.
oh, sorry
Oh,
again.
go
So,
ahead.
so if we was to hit those 15 every semester, we'll be on track to graduate.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. Because you need 120 credit hours over the course of 4 years to graduate. So if you add it all up, divide it all up evenly every semester, that's about 15 every semester.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So when that happens, obviously that'll keep you pretty busy, right? To be in class. There is still time to do other things, and we will talk about that later. But definitely a pro tip from me. Take it from me, as someone who did not do a good job of this my very first semester at all of that. Use those empty slots, those spaces in between classes to get some homework done or to get some reading done. Now, every once in a while, you might be tired and you need to use a slot in between classes to take a little nap or go eat some breakfast. That's okay. It's not the end of the world. But remember to use those empty spaces wisely to really save yourself some work later on in the evening when you might be more tired or you're going to a rehearsal or you want to go do something fun with your friends. So just keep that in mind as we continue talking. Now, that was one example, right, of Alexa's class schedule. So we're going to look at a student athlete schedule. So this is Anne's schedule. Anne is a basketball player. So she took this past semester 15 credit hours. And you'll see that all of her classes on here are done by 1 p.m. And the reason for that is she's trying to be really intentional about being done at a decent time so she has a little bit of a break. And then she goes to her basketball practice, right? Which is going to be a couple hours at least. So when you are a student athlete or if you are part of a music ensemble and you have rehearsals at certain times, then obviously your schedule is going to need to be adjusted so that you're getting your things done earlier in the day so that you can go to rehearsal or practice later on. Same thing still applies. Inevitably, you're going to have gaps, right? Which wasn't a thing in high school. In high school, you're just in school the entire day, right? So the fun thing about college is you do get these little breaks, right? In this example, Anne is going to class at 8, but then she has a 2-hour break before her next class on Monday. And then she's got, a break so she can go to practice. And then she has a class on Monday nights, just that one time because it's a longer class. And this doesn't mean you're always going to have a night class, but that might be, the only way that it works out for your schedule to do that. So every once in a while, you might have a semester where things are a little bit different. Either you have a really early morning class or you have an evening class, and that's okay. That's part of the college experience. But again, same lesson applies, using those empty blocks of time wisely to make sure that you're getting some food, you're getting some homework done, and getting everything else done that you need to. So always use those gaps.
Can
And
you oh, sorry.
go ahead.
Can you choose to have night classes?
Yes, for the most part. Every once in a while, a night class might be the only way to make it work in your schedule, depending on if you're working or if you're part of a music ensemble or if you're an athlete. A night class might be the only way to make it work to hit 15 credit hours. But if you really don't like night classes and you'd rather go to class earlier in the morning, then most of the time you can make that work. Most of the time there's a couple options at least for a class.
Also, what's the latest class there is, or
Yeah,
like?
great question. That's typically, honestly, this class right here is probably the latest time slot you would see on a given day, starting around 7, and ending, I think hers ends around, looks like it ends around 9 on this one. So that's pretty typical. Some classes actually start a little bit early if they're a night class, like they might start at 6, or even 5, I think. It just depends on the class. But I think this 7 to 9 slot is probably about the latest that you would ever find as an option. So yeah, this is another example of what 15 credit hours might look like for a student that has things going on in the afternoon or evening, but always use those gaps. Now, let's say for any reason you have to take less than 15 credit hours. First of all, you'll want to double check and see if you're getting a MAP grant on your financial aid offer. You'll really want to double check and really think that decision through, just because they're not going to give you that full amount. if you take less than 15 credit hours. But if for any reason you have to, then maybe you'll just need to consider taking a winter class or a summer class, either through Olivet or through a community college. Or, and here's another option, although obviously this will be a bit more challenging, you could take 18 credit hours in a given semester. So that would be about 6 classes. That's not impossible, but it can be pretty busy, which is why not everybody wants to do that. And not everybody should do that, right? If you're really busy with other things, if you're working a lot, or if you're in a bunch of other clubs or activities or ensembles, then that might not be the best fit. But if that is what will make it work for you to graduate on time, then we will be supportive of that. You just have to make sure you are managing your time very well. So something else to keep in mind as another option. So what to expect when it comes to class time? We've talked about, right, those 15 credit hours. Well, what can you expect outside of the classroom? And really, this is another goal for you. You should be studying at least 30 to 35 hours every week outside of the time that you are spending in class with your professors. So this is something I want to clarify, because when I was in high school, I was really stressed out by that because I didn't fully understand what studying meant. Because in my mind, studying meant like reading a book to prepare for a test. That's what studying meant to me. Now, you might just be a lot more prepared and smarter than I am, but I just want to clarify that when we talk about studying at the college level, we are referring to, doing your assignments, doing your projects, doing assigned readings. Yes, studying for tests if you have a test or a quiz coming up, listening to audiobooks, and really anything that is helping you learn your material from class. So that might be making flashcards so that you can study for something, or so that you
That's
can.
per week, right?
Say it again?
Per week, right?
Per week, yes. So you're
Okay.
aiming for 30 to 35 hours every week. It's like a job, right? You need to consider that a job, because that really is what it is. College is essentially your job for 4 years to make sure that you can have a better job once you graduate. Now,
I'm
I
not
know.
very good at that.
Say what?
I'm not very good at studying,
At
but
studying?
I can try.
Yeah,
I can try.
it can, yes. And the thing is, Camille, you're not alone. I think a lot of students, myself included, when we first got to college, we'd say the same thing. We weren't particularly good at studying, or we got distracted easily, or we just didn't know what it took to study. Now, we will help you learn a lot of important things when it comes to study skills. There are so many resources on campus to help you structure a good schedule, to get into a study routine, and to help you really learn what it is to study well. Really, the most important thing is your willingness to work hard and do your best in each class, and to devote that time, right? A lot of students, when you have so much flexibility, they'll just get so excited about all this extra time that they'll spend it doing fun things, which isn't bad in and of itself, but they might not be giving studying enough time. So remember to just kind of already be preparing yourself for this mindset that you need to be spending a good 30 hours at least outside of your class time studying every week. Now, when we say the week, we're not just talking Monday through Friday. Remember that you can study on Saturday and Sunday too, and it's actually recommended so that then the next week of classes isn't so overwhelming, right? So you're dividing this time among your 7 days of the week. Because on a Sunday, even if you're really busy, like going to church and doing a fun little lunch with your friends, even if you just read for an hour or two, that's so much better than nothing. So again, just keep that in mind. Keep that mindset that you're really going to have to dedicate those 30 to 35 hours a week, at least every week. And that studying includes all the things we talked about: working on projects, working on flashcards, studying alone or studying with a group. All of those things count. Now, again, sometimes that amount can be kind of overwhelming for students. So I did give you this little graph over here so that it's not as scary, right? If you calculate the hours of the week, and then you calculate the percentage of the week that you're going to be spending studying, it's only 21%. So it's about a fifth of your week that you'll be spending studying. That's not as overwhelming when you look at it that way. But again, still an important percentage, right? This is really going to determine how well you do in classes and how high your GPA stays. So just as a goal for you, manage your time well, and you'll still have time to, go to class and do your studying. But outside of that, you'll still have time to sleep a decent amount of time, to make sure you're eating and taking care of your body, making friends, maybe picking up a part-time job, joining extracurriculars. It sounds busy, but it really is possible to balance all of those things. And if you're wondering, I did check in with our students and I asked them, like, how much sleep did you typically get a night this past semester? And most of them said about 6 or 7, which isn't actually that bad. So again, manage your time well, and you will have the ability to balance all of the important things in your day and in your week. And then I do want to plug this program. I just learned about it actually this week, and it's actually a really exciting opportunity. This is something that requires an application, so it's not just something automatically that you're going to do. And it's a limited amount of students that are going to be admitted into this program. So you do have to be admitted and deposited, which Camilla, you do qualify for that. But it's called the RISE program. So it's called the Reinforced Interdisciplinary Student Experience. It's a 2-year program, so it's really for freshman and sophomore year. And anyone that is qualified coming in as a freshman, it's going to really support that transition for you from high school to college. So it's going to include a variety of things, specialized courses that will be taught by specific professors that are super passionate about helping you be successful in that transition from high school to college. You'll take those courses, those general education courses, with other people, with the other 29 people, because I think it's only 30 students that are admitted to this year. So you'll be taking your classes with 29 other people that are part of the same program, which means you automatically get a smaller group that you belong to. And oftentimes when you're part of a group like that, that's where you make some really beautiful and close friendships. So that's another positive there. You will get to go on a retreat together with that group of people, which is really fun. Again, that's not everyone on campus that's invited to that. It's just your cohort or your group of 29 other people with you, plus, of course, your professors that are leading that group. There will be specific events that you get invited to as part of this group. You'll have direct access to point people on campus that already know you're part of the program, that are dedicated to helping you succeed, that are there to answer your questions. And you'll always have this opportunity for advising, right? Which advising could mean just someone encouraging you. It could mean helping you figure out a good class schedule, a good study schedule. So there's a lot of things that we include in that advising term. So that's a really great opportunity, and the application is free. It is, I think, a 2 or 3 part application, but we will help you through it. If you're interested in that, just let me know. I will send you the link to the direct page so that you can apply for that. And then they'll be able to review your application and get back to you on whether you are admitted into the new RISE program. So that's another good opportunity, and hopefully something that gets you excited about, an additional way to get connected and an additional way to make sure that you're successful at the college level.